Vertical integration. This is the make or buy question that we referred to. So we're going to produce it internally, and this will require substantial investment, and it would be high transactional costs, and there's a complex and uncertain economic environment, and there's a lot of strategic value, like it's your core competency and differentiation. So when these are the nature of the investment, it's going to nudge you away from a contract toward being tempted to vertically integrate. Advantages are we skip the middleman and we're just making the product in our own control. There's less opportunism. We cannot be held up. Similar to an example of chip prices going up for auto manufacturers, they're stuck. They've already specified that chip for their car, and they're going to have to pay a higher price if they had not previously contracted a price and a delivery schedule for those chips. And we might also want to mitigate any of the transaction costs because you pick up a phone, you write an email, and you get your chips, right? Because it's your own company. The disadvantage of this is that we're going to lose some advantage being expert in just what we're doing, and we're also going to lose the expertise of the supplier. If we've never made chips before, and now we're going to say, oh, I'll just make my own microprocessor chip, well, you lose all the accumulated knowledge and capabilities of Intel. So you better be careful about that one. The other is that there might be some internal regulatory mechanism necessary to make sure all this works. Quality control, delivery, adherence, things like that. Next is who's going to bear the cost of setting up the facilities? You are. So your fixed cost investment is going to jump because of taking on the manufacturing of that product. There's also no longer specialization in your own output because now you're doing things that perhaps aren't in your wheelhouse, if you will, and you're losing the accumulated experience of the supplier. And the other is it is a distraction to key management and other resources. So if it's not your core competency and you have other better use of management time, you might want to stay away from this one. The procurement of inputs can also be done on this flowchart. Here, let's say the first choice is, do I want to go spot exchange or something more complicated? And that's going to be based on the level of the investment and the opportunism, bargaining, and underinvestment risk of that item, like the apples, right? Apple, it's a readily found item. There's not a lot of risk because you're buying it for one recipe, let's say. And there's a less risk of holdup because of the ready nature of supply of the item, the commodity item, in our example, apples, right? So next is we say, okay, now it's complicated. It's not just an apple. It's something more specific to my business. Now you have another choice. Do I contract with an outside provider or do I try to make it on my own? And here we're looking at the strategic and your own capability set, then the nature of the intellectual property, if that's related to this particular item, the risks and the costs of whatever you're trying to acquire. Some examples of this would be if I want to go buy a sandwich, I think I'll just go to a local sandwich shop and buy a sandwich. If I want to buy a whole bunch of sandwiches for all the people in my company, I may look at contracting it through caterer because just the complexity and headache and time necessary to handle 100 or 200 sandwiches might be too much to bother with a spot exchange. Then we have another situation where, what if it's strategic? This is a picture of Dropbox, and they're quite famous for this incredible cafeteria they have with Michelin star chefs. Well, there it's not a matter of the cost of a sandwich or a turkey sandwich in this case. It's that it's part of their strategic plan to make the environment such that they hire people and people don't want to leave their company. So that's certainly characteristic of many of the aspects of Dropbox's compensation and overall package. So this is now part of their overall strategy of acquiring talent and retaining the talent and keeping everyone happy. Also, I guess to keep them in the shop so they don't waste 2 hours on a lunch. So in this case, there are other considerations once you get past, like it's not a spot item. So do I contract with a vendor, like a Bon Appetit vendor, could just run the cafeteria for you, or are you going to manufacture the product yourself, like some fancy food in a cafeteria?